Okay.
Okay, welcome to the 6th, 2023. We start with our secretary's report. Do we have any discussion, changes, alterations? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the May 6th, secretary's report, aye. All opposed? Okay, good report now.
Okay, these are the figures not through today, but through the end of the, I guess, fiscal year, which was, end of May. So June 1st, 2023, June 1st, 2023. The checking account has $3,993.26. I brought up a check for $290 today to the post office for a mailing, so it's 3,700 is what we have in the check. In the money market account, no changes there. It's $2,693.71, and we're getting about $10 a month interest on a Vanguard money market fund. Nicely, and the Robert Smith Fund, as of the end of May, $23,355. With that $8,500 check, it's now or $8,500. It's now $14,855. The Robert Smith Fund, and all the bills that I've had, the only bill that I had paid was through the post office, so I'm not seeing any bills.
Thank you. Any questions for her? All in favor of accepting the June 6th treasurer's report? Say aye.
Yeah, annual breakfast meeting was held this morning at 8 a.m. in the evening room at the Win. Mr. Martell's past town manager was our guest speaker. He brought us up to date on many events concerning Osterville and the town. We expressed our appreciation for his help and attention to our concerns. Election of officers took place. We have new members of our steering committee. Pat Glover of Rockland Trust, who will also serve as our new treasurer. Beth Serpenat of 5 Days and Crisp Restaurants, and Ray Goulet of Cape Jazz. They are replacing Sarah Malaspino, our past treasurer, and Heather Wilson and Anne Marie Edwards, who resigned. We thank Sarah with a presentation for her services for many years as our treasurer, and wish her the very best in her promotion at Rockland Trust, and possibly in a different city. Chuck Sabat introduced the OBTA scholarship winners. They are Isabel Rudy of Osterville and Abigail Seth of Osterville. They attended our meeting with their mothers and were very appreciative of receiving the scholarship. Plans are being made for our annual Village Day to be held Saturday, July 15th. We'll be holding our parade at 1 p.m. The theme this year is Summer Fun. Our summer cocktail party with steel drum music and raw bar will be held at the Historical Museum under a tent on Tuesday, July 25th, from 5 to 7 p.m. Invitations will be sent out to all of the OBTA members and their guests.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Well, I think this last meeting that I did not attend did turn out to be productive for the village. And that I think you guys were talking about the Robert Smith Fund and possibly Russ's request of putting in a sign. Russ ran with it with the town. I'm not complaining to have done anything with it. And I think you guys have seen the 25-mile-per-hour flashing sign right in front of his home, which the town, and particularly Sergeant Perry in the traffic division, which I know some of you folks know, he's also a villager here, has always identified as a hotspot, getting the actual owners of the two properties across the street from each other to actually be okay with a flashing version of the sign in their neighborhood has been one of the sort of obstructions to getting them in some places. Some folks being like, either they're aesthetically unappealing or they make them look kids, some version of that. So it feels that I have been on the receiving end of a lot more conversation about road, street safety writ large. Some folks are trying to equate it to like a post-COVID sort of explosion of maybe anger on the streets to a certain extent. I don't know if I've been seeing that. Speeding, of course, I think everyone knows that that's a pretty consistent issue everywhere. But there's simple things with them, DPW repainting crosswalks, talking about raised crosswalks and a couple of critical sort of high-speed avenue approaches. Thing about like the raised crosswalk becoming really popular too, just put in their first one is they do fall into the capital improvement budget plans. They take a little while. They're not a dollar amount that allows you just to put one up. And then engineering wise, they can't be on anything like turn. They have to have enough of a distance view for the drivers so that they see it coming. And so there's other conversations about sidewalks and other versions of signs, other versions of temporary speed humps, not the raised table. But I would encourage the group where the eyes and ears, the DPW as well as the PD, obviously, and the turnaround on Russ's request was pretty extraordinary. Impactful to him, his family, his neighbors. So, but that all there wasn't a lot of fanfare for it. Really, just had a conversation between him and Officer Perry, and it got installed. So the more of that stuff that can either come to me or go to your relationship at DPW or the police department, I think we can see some relatively quick turnaround on big street related stuff. Now, we also have a large group of folks who like to use our streets for exercise. And I think that we see a lot of, practices on the weekends that are probably borderline unsafe. I don't have any necessarily really great ideas, except for making sure that everybody is that's on who are on bikes and things like that. But obviously, following through on that and enforcing it is not that easy. So as far as generating ideas about street safety, if you guys want to forward those ideas, or we can talk about street safety, either event or focused meeting, or maybe folks don't feel like it's as big a deal. Maybe it's just that every spring we get that feeling because more people are, One of the, I thought, interesting ideas is that came out of my conversations with Chief Sonovan, Manager Els, and Officer Perry, was the idea, right now there's sort of a passive outgoing communication to the 700 registered contractors and landscaping companies that operate in the town of Barnstable. That number blew my mind. I think there's 50,000 people in the town. I don't know how you get 700, but there's a lot of trucks that are just one person, and so they get a reminder of the season and things like that. What we discussed was the idea of whether or not there is some certification that somebody who's in charge of the transportation pool at a place like Joyce or something goes through and gets sort of Barnstable PD approved safe certification. What they get is generally like the parking rules, how you're supposed to pull over to the side and put out your cones and things like that. But I think we all, and I don't know everybody's business here, so I'm not trying to factor in on particular businesses, but I think we all know what the vast majority of the traffic sometimes can be on their streets. And so maybe bumping up that sort of like passive outgoing communication, reminding folks that then pass on to other drivers, we could do something more substantive with them to make sure that that group of drivers who have large vehicles with much of things hanging out that don't pose a threat. So that's on street safety. Commonwealth Wind and Douse. I don't know if everybody is sort of aware of the sort of shift a little bit in the overall timeline of that proposed project. I think everybody knows, right, the Vineyard Wind going to Cuddles. We'll probably see actual electricity running under the street by December of this year or January. Maybe December as a test, and then I believe delivering electricity in January is what I hear. The next project at Craigville Beach is there's conversation between they are not fully in default in the way that sort of like the Commonwealth Wind, the one that's proposed to Douse. There seems to be an avenue, or no pun intended, for Park City Wind and the Connecticut deal to work out. What it does seem like in regards to the one that's proposed for Beach here at Douse's is that most likely that's going to be that company, Avangrid, is going to have to effectively reapply in January of next year with a bid to get the solicitation again for a project that they've already proposed. And Avangrid plans to continue the permit, thinking, I think, that they will have a competitive advantage in the bid, whatever the rubric is to add up the score, because they'll be closer to having their project come online by the target dates in 2030 in regards to emissions reduction. I don't know. I really don't know. There's litigation that's involved in a way that is not involved right now with the Connecticut project. The Park City Wind, the Park City Wind thing does look like it's going to go up Main Street of Centerville. It's serious questions. Those are old historic homes, those huge trees. Root ball of those trees, they're big as the canopy. We know where they could be. So that seems like it could possibly still be on track. But as far as like the Commonwealth Wind, Dowse's concept is not something we would actually see any formal news on until about this time next summer. Other stuff about Dowse's. I think we talked a little bit about raking, right? So raking is not going to be happening effectively. I guess the town has never raked the low rack, but the high rack line, especially after a big storm, would always get removed. The high rack line after storm would only be removed if it posed some nuisance / health related issue. So whether or not that becomes an issue for us in the enjoyment of the beach this summer, that's a little bit hard to say, but that is happening at all the beaches that are effectively hosts for the habitat for endangered birds. And so this is tied into the plovers conversation, which I gotta be honest with you, I went out and watched the plovers last Thursday or Friday afternoon for like 2 hours, and it was, I know about the plovers, but I didn't really experience it before, and to watch them in action and use the beach in that way was actually pretty, it was a really great experience for me like that. And so also we'll be going to the regular routine on June 24th for the beach, as far as when the staff will be there, fully staffed, as well as the closing of the gate at 9 p.m. both Friday and Saturday nights. Let's see, budget town-wise, right? $230 million operating budget, 60 million or so capital improvement budget. Both have passed in the last 2 town council meetings, except for the actual school budget will happen this upcoming meeting. The analysis by CFAC of the budget work that Mark Milton and his team does is really one of the better documents I've seen on it. So maybe taking a look at it, it's really insightful, I feel like, to the town's economic health, and I think really appreciate the hard work those folks put in. One of the big things is that the population of our student body at our schools, as the change in demographics, has led to a relatively large Chapter 70 increase for the town. And so that education funding has to be by law split, and I think it's 40 split between the actual town operating budget and the school committee itself, which has delivered one particularly good benefit, which is the conversation of the 2.5 override conversation is done for this year. Like that's not going back. Whether or not that comes back, I think it's certainly possible. Whether or not it would come back in a presidential election year next 2024, I'm not really certain. That is something that folks are trying to figure out, like when we get to a point in regards to paying for financing the large $200 to $300 million worth of the next tranche of CWMP projects, and that hit on the budget, and whether or not we have the new growth dollars to cover the new costs of the financing. If not, we're going to probably be looking for an override, but that is not on the docket for this town. The fun stuff I can think of. We talked a little bit about park earlier this morning. I think folks know that the old base school, and so I think folks have seen probably the Little League into the adult going league. That might not have started. That's going to start on Friday, or has it started? It's going to be Friday nights or Friday Friday early. The Little League's there, girls softball, skills league, and then an adult league. So that part's done, tennis court, building disappeared. What we have money for is for the demolition of the building, meeting recreation center. And that to be replaced, not exactly on that site, but really closer to the parking lots, that the parking spaces next to the tennis court would be a compensation. So, and then it's in the women's room, that would be operating maintained by the town. Would be really great benefit. But then, so the demo, and then to put in, the playground itself, $1.3 million was voted on that recently, and that's for effectively the design, which is sort of done, but not really, and then the actual equipment, and then but the dates for those, this group reserves the actual dates. None of that will be in this calendar year. The process is sort of, we do almost one process a year, project a year, and right now we're not up to other playgrounds and rec center activities, but I feel like most likely we'll get the demo of the building and hopefully the playground next calendar year. But maybe not in the 23, in fiscal year, sorry, 24 budget. Hello. Yes. I might not. I think that pretty much covers it. I don't know if folks have any questions. Yeah. Yeah, so Mark Marinaccio's team has come up with one iteration and what it potentially could look like. The dollar amounts can go up if we want to do things effectively, like have real sort of, if we wanted everything to look like it was on a boat, you could have like thematic pieces. But then you have to shave money elsewhere to do like that. If we go for effectively the level of equipment that's one level above what we have in the corner right now, that's presently what's proposed. Nothing with like a look or a feel that would suggest something different, right? It's pretty. I think I think that they have in the past and are using one in Centerville in particular and one other spots. So there is, because I feel like you folks were.
So I'm
Right. Yeah.
Work from that great committee. I still have.
I think all of that stuff fully informed where it stands right now. And I met with Mark Marinaccio, he's like, this is effectively what folks, this particular project that approved, somewhere he said around 4 times.
Yes, that's, yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. In there. And he was ready to convene at a moment ago.
This Diane was hoping it would move back through your committee.
Yes,
I
yes.
think she requested that.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, there were a bunch of on that committee, including Barnesville, Greenwich, or other folks really had a great input. The initial proposal we had said the normal process would be, we would meet with her, go through all sorts of samples, we don't have those things. And then we wouldn't see or hear from her for 2 to 3 weeks. It was just the normal process. And then COVID.
Yeah.
Playground committee. Waiting.
Well, it's great that you kept that stuff and if we can use it to effectively inform
Yes.
the actual
Yes.
work
It's
itself.
right.
Yeah.
A little bit of a non.
Yeah, right.
But just having an eye to that.
So then I wouldn't be surprised then if that was the conversation back then,
Yes.
that the little bit of a nod theme to it is part of. Yeah. There's stuff that looks like sales. and things. Yeah, all right.
Assume that the basic design you're talking about was what's needed now for playgrounds like weatherized, so that 1.3 includes basics that would be needed.
Yes,
Almost every project has to have that.
yes, right. Oh, yeah, the actual clay floor
Right,
is
yeah,
something
that's
that.
multi-purpose.
Yeah. The only other thing I had that I missed was, so the DEP's Title V regulation change is probably something that will get announced in this month or next. So I think folks know that it's sort of a carrot stick thing for pretty much really the South Shore to the key town communities. In there, we share certain realities in regards to the adoption of septic systems as well as primarily living on sand instead of bedrock and soil. And so it'll be a big splash when it comes out. The thing about it is that our CWMP, the actual sewer plant itself, will probably stand in for effectively our town solution for what the state is going to say has to happen. So effectively our 208 plan and the CLF lawsuit and the introduction of CWMP, we're weirdly a rough period, but weirdly a little bit effectively driving the agenda to a certain extent on the state level. And so we're not going to fall under our town, the whole sort of, you guys don't have a CWP, then in 5 years, everybody has to upgrade their septic system. That is going to happen to towns on our periphery. And so it will be a big issue. It possibly could be an amazing new set of industries in the long term in this region. So there could be potential ways of looking at it that way. But it could also be pretty wrenching at a time when we're also going to take a 30-year, $1.5 billion infrastructure.
On the upgrades, Paul.
Yeah.
You know, Venus over there is working on
Yeah.
issue. Is that what they're talking about, replacing it? Something like that? Do we have the
Yeah.
technology
That's
for the?
Yep, so you'll see an abbreviation, the letter I, and then a slash and an A, innovative / alternative. And so those are the ideas that are, if you, I don't know if you've heard of MASS DC, it's the Massachusetts Septic System Testing Center on our base here at KDCC. You can really go out and visit effectively, I think around 25 different systems that are like everything that focus on nitrogen, focus on phosphorus, focused on, there's a thing called urine diversion. It's another way of thinking about this challenge. So yeah, so Z and the Barnes Clean Water Coalition has versions that they've been working with the EPA and some other groups to help effectively get into people's backyards right now as effectively early adopters, but they're testing, they're piloting things that this number is going to bother folks because it's a high number, but like right now to put in an IA all in, it's definitely a 50 to 60K thing. And it changes our relationship, right? There's a phrase, flush and forget, right? It's great. So weirdly a great achievement possibly of Western culture, but at the same rate, it means that we don't really pay attention to after we flush, right? And so now with innovative alternative, you could be talking about new systems with a lot more moving parts, right? Oh, you do? I didn't know that, Mark. Yeah.
2 years ago.
Which one?
The one that was testing the
Yeah. Guy over.
not perfect. Yeah, the name of it, but
Lean
it was-
to, yeah.
Lean to.
Yeah, right, okay.
But it's a new way of thinking about it. Here's a band running all the time. And I pay a quarterly fee for them to come and check it because that's mandated by the state. Now that may be relaxed, but there's a pump running in the yard. There's 3 test ports they come out and check quarterly. And they're test ports in the different chambers of the system. And the chambers are lime and basically bark wood chips. And they're basically turning the nitrogen into gas. And that little fan is blowing the nitrogen into the air where it's not hurting the environment directly. 39% nitrogen anyway, and it's not going in the bag. Where we live, and there's 5 people in the house, it's going right in the bag. There's no question about it. The other test site they're doing up at Schuyl's Pond, we had to do a lot of studying at Barnes Clean Water to figure out where the water table is taking the nitrogen once it goes into the ground. But the systems themselves are proving very effective. To the point where I can't specifically say right off the top of my head, but they're reducing the nitrogen effluent into the ground resource to levels below the wastewater treatment.
That's,
So, or compounded.
Right.
And they're testing each of these 30 systems that are in, including cars and the ones down on the vineyard, which I think he's up over 50.
Yeah. John Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's a particular system. So each system has to have 50 in the ground before the steel starts listening to the data. Then the data has to be done for 3 years. There's all these parameters to show that it's effective. And then you've got to figure out how to mass produce them and if they're going to be mandated.
Based on your experience, do you see that they could go mainstream sort of thing?
Based on the 3 or 4 technologies out of the 25 mentioned that are being tested, yeah, I do. I mean, I think at some point in the next 10 years, we'll be picking a system for people that are not going to be picked up by the sewer system. And they're going to be somehow mandated, whether it's at the exchange of the property or within 5 years or a certain amount of years, to get people online. I think there's certain areas that the sewer system, isn't going to reach. I hope they start being mandated sooner for those areas because everything takes so long. I started on the playground committee 12 years ago. I gave up after 5. And you guys suck it. So it's like, it was for my kids, but I was really involved in it first, and now it's my grandkids. Yeah, it is. It is now. It's the way it works. Everything's slow. So the way I am on the Barnstable Clean Water Coalition board, and the way we've seen the water degraded, it's everybody talks about global warming, everything's coming, it's coming, it is coming. Up in the north part of Princess Cove, where I grew up as a kid, we'd be up there fishing, head boats up there. If you run up there in a small outboard right now, you're basically going to clog your engine. It's so thick of the road coming from the nitrogen that's flowing down from the Marston Mills River through across under 28 into that watershed where it goes brackish and then into the salt water. It's just that's full feeding the growth within the waters and cutting everything else off. It's working its way out into North Bay, working its way out basically to Hewitt Bay, and it's a big toilet. And the only way you can stop it is stop putting so much stuff into the system. So it is interesting, it is expensive, but the alternatives, the cost comparison, which again, I won't speak to the specifics, we need someone in the paperwork in front of them, but it's expensive per household, but it's just as expensive to put these wastewater treatment pipes in, and the pumps that service those are just millions of dollars. You're gonna buy property every mile or less than a mile, tear it down, build a pump station, make it look like a house or not, make it look ugly, fight all the neighbors. It's gonna be, we're just seeing the start of it. Figure land goes like this. You gotta get all that flow from every section of the wastewater treatment piping to the facility. The way to do that is huge, massive pump, 24/7, people maintain them. It's a whole, no longer we're just putting it in the ground.
That's a good segue into one interesting part of the CWNP, which is we talk about it in 30 years and 3 10-year phases. But in truth, there's also 5-year iterative look back portions that is written into the legislation that the town actually has to undergo, like, okay, where's the progress on the sewer presently, but where is the progress on IA and UD, and whether or not that can effectively for later stages sort of negate the need to be putting in as much sewering. So 2025 would be the first review year of CWP. So a big portion of that conversation.
Generally, cost for the means in aggregate is less than what we have. And so some of these areas.
Yeah, the science proves it. Like Oyster Harbor, they're never going to get. Not going to bridges and stuff. Probably next year, I'll get put on the sewer, but it's going to start. Certain creek areas, certain places, 5 homes.
Yeah.
There's going to be all these areas. Sewer system never touches.
Yeah, I think even if I did all 30 years and 1.5 billion, I think we still would only get 35% of parcels. That would not include any investment. Osterville Village RDP. Yeah, I think that's.
I want to reduce that. One more question. The prior town council was working on the sidewalks at East Bay. Have you having discussions about that.
I did when we were, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just when we were in the HCA conversation.
Yes.
Which is now been December.
Yes.
So that host community agreement conversation that was ongoing with the potential for the Commonwealth Wind Landing in Dowsey definitely had in it a conversation about the need to do what the town has done with every other village that has a town owned operated beach, which is to get the sidewalk to the entrance. And I do not know what happened in the past that kept the sidewalk where it ends presently. I have talked to 3 homeowners on Tuesday. I think I've gotten a little bit of a mixed response about that topic. But we have not broached it really since the end of the HCA conversation. I feel like there's a lot of reasons why we should probably try to get the sidewalk. Down. It's like, and you know, there's some great, beautiful homes there, and I think everybody knows that effectively a town right of way is 40 feet, and you can measure that out, and so you can sort of figure out if you're over the line. And look, I think we all probably root outwards with our fences and landscaping. I think that's totally natural, but and the town doesn't really want to find itself in a position of feeling like it's taking back property that is all our shared, but that is a natural decision. And it looks like if there was ever, if we're going to do it, we'd be doing it on the inland side.
It used to be something, you could actually see the grade on this bit. You just go down the line.
All the way around.
Well, you're talking about the Vienna. You're talking about.
I'm talking about East Bay from Main Street all the way up.
Yeah,
Got it.
so as kids, we rode the sidewalk. It was deteriorating then. It was half asphalt, half dirt, but on the right side of the Main Street going to the beach. And you can, like you said, you can still see, but the tree roots had bumped it up, and eventually the creek from the landscape just went to the street, so we lost it at some point over winter, probably. People stopped.
Gotcha.
That's a heavily foot traffic here.
Really important, yeah. A lot of folks.
One question, back to the traffic softening.
Yeah.
I've always wondered what we could get people to stop at each end of the road. That, or the speed humps. I mean, it's just gotten worse and worse. I don't know if anybody's gone out to leave Osterville to go. I went out today. The traffic was backed up to the Osterville West Barnstable Road. I mean, it was crazy. And it is like that every day. It's because ever since that light was put in at 28, more and more people realize they can come from Hyannis and cut through. That's one reason. So they come
So
to
South County.
They come from Centerville,
Yeah.
on South County out to 28. Yeah, and then they come, obviously all the trucks and contractors and people, everybody come flying into the village in the morning. It's death defying if you like from 6:45 to 8:30 by the old Charlie's or whatever that new real estate company is there in the corner.
Yeah.
Way before Russell's. Russell's already slowing down.
Oh, yeah.
Because slow before we get to the next stops of it. With no stop coming into the village at either end, at Wimpy's, the other end. It just seems logically those should be either speed humps or maybe speed humps would slow down.
Maybe a stop sign coming from the north-south, right at the old country store, right where the crosswalk. That would keep people aided, whether they go take a right down Park Road or through. That's the hardest part getting out. And also the traffic can look.
Yeah.
But if you put another stop sign, say, I don't know if you want to do a 4-way stop in front of Wimpy's instead of a 2-way, that's also a dangerous area.
It really is.
Yeah,
It's,
so you have them stop in both directions, slow traffic.
I just was wondering, I want to throw it out there while we're having a conversation. People think that's a good idea or monumental task to get.
Yeah.
We discussed that just before Jim died.
I remember it coming up over the years.
Stuff.
I've always thought it's a good idea, even though it's a pain when it's quiet out, to be local and have to stop. It's just so scary sometimes.
Yeah.
Kids on bikes, when the bike shop used to be there. Coming in and out of there, and coming in and out of the house and garden and going shop it, that whole area is a cluster in the morning, getting out in front of the house and garden. When the people coming from Centerville, they rip your door off and just keep going. Cement trucks, no matter what size vehicle it is. They just.
Yeah.
That on the agenda just to get it done.
But yeah, or if there were other traffic stopping areas, I don't know, just even when they country on those, but might be good. Have that agenda.
The traffic in town, we have to talk about this possibility. They're right. You need to stop traffic, slow it down, stop it before it gets right into the center from both directions. If you try to come out on West West Bay, in front of Wimpy's or Tower Hill, the same thing, very difficult.
Yeah.
Because the sight line's not so good coming to Tower Hill, it's not so good the other way. But that would slow everybody to two different sections. Would be a stop sign only coming on the south side, right
Right.
here, not the other. way.
Just basically get the gravity of the vehicles down.
Yeah.
It's just like, if they come from this out, they have to. pour it.
Unfortunately, a four-way stop at a post office, people don't stop. So I mean, just putting the stop sign there isn't gonna solve anything.
I mean,
I think that works quite well.
At the post office?
No.
Well, better than it used to be.
Well, it's- People,
Remember when there's no stop sign going downhill by the veterans hall? Yeah. Like, I didn't make it.
Okay,
Just a couple of, yeah, just a couple of things to keep in mind as we move towards some of these ideas, which is that there will be pushback from some folks. Even though we'll talk about safety and be like, of course, everybody is equally invested in safety, and I think people are. But then if you do things like the raised crosswalk, that is effectively like a speed bump table. It does now by state law come with two rather large yellow lights with perimeters with yellow flags. And so, right, so that might be appealing to all of us, but maybe not for the store or the home, for that part of it. And also, you know, anytime we push for any sort of speed or safety related sort of requests from the DPW or particularly the police department, they do find that once they start doing things like ticketing and speed traps, that they just pretty much catch all of us. Then we have a thought in our head, which is that, anybody here from New Jersey? Oh, visitors from New Jersey. And it turns out to really just be us builders. And so you just gotta keep in mind that some of the, it seems like all like low hanging fruit, but it's not.
I could see a stop sign either end back in traffic up out.
That's, I'd say the most, like, the folks responded to, it's like taking the high speed avenues approach, pretty much coming from Centerville, this direction, coming down from, you know, where South County and Osterville was once, and having something pushed pretty far out there, where there's a long straightaway where the car just naturally, yeah, it gets up to 45. Yeah, cool.
thanks,
Thank
Paul,
you.
appreciate it. Mark?
Right, well, the class of 2023 made it pretty easy. Everybody wanted to re-up and spend another 3 years volunteering their time and efforts here. So the class of 2023 consists of Dick Coleman, Brian Crow, McKay Robin, Crosby, Mike Coleman, and Gail Lanning. For our bylaws, 2 candidates must be at large. The at-large candidates voted on at the annual meeting, the other 4 candidates automatically back and forth. So 2 of the class of 2023 directors were randomly selected, and 2 that were selected at large to be at large are Al and Richard. And then anyone wishing to run for a seat on the board of directors for our bylaws must submit to the secretary of the board their intention no later than 14 days prior to the scheduled annual meeting, which is August 16th. So if anyone's asked about being on the board, they can run at the meeting as long as they submit by August 2nd to our secretary. John, did I get that on there?
Yeah.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about that? Anything else?
I had one of the candidates that wants to run for the board, maybe we should talk about that.
Okay.
Again, comment. We have 16 members, I think, 16 board members. We don't have to add anybody, our laws, our bylaws basically say no less than 9 and no more than 17. So we do have an open.
we have, which 4-year period or 3-year period, do we
That's
have
what
an
I'm
opening?
looking
Yeah,
at. I don't know.
we have an opening right now, then.
We have open.
It could be a 1-year, a 2-year, or a 3-year.
Yes. We're no against that, but I think. Yeah.
At the same time, I would like to look in the file as well to see if we have any letters of intention. Do you have any, John? Have you
No, I
received it? I know, you got one last year. You know what that is? David? I think that's the only one I can remember. You may not receive.
Yeah. We want to select the candidate again. Got it?
Perfect resume.
Everybody got one of these? Considering what she's involved in now, as well as the wind power range. Probably one of the most informed. people. Putting all the contact details.
So right now, we have an opening, but we don't know. If it's category.
I don't know which. I have to look it up, what position she would be filling in the building. Okay, when that person or that position is up next. Nomination.
Pretty sure it's
I think that-
Craig's,
Correct, yeah.
I think it's Craig's spot. He was spot 2, so. 2 here.
Good,
Right?
that's right.
Yeah, so if, if the other person that had to be considered, should we consider them at the same time? Yeah, whether we want to appoint one or the other, or if we want to let both run the meeting, or
It's a real run, but this question whether we want to appoint them. And I think that probably makes sense. Let them know and have them do something similar. And then we can, as a board, we can vote.
we can do it electronically, right?
Electronically, we put it on the slate. Versus with the other slate for the end. Not critical. We can do it. Something like that.
Right, so an opening in September or up until the next meeting, we can.
Might be less confusing to do it at a regular meeting rather than our annual meeting.
Yeah.
When you've got a whole slate of options, and I don't think people would understand why you're doing this.
So if I understand that, we're gonna see if the other person's attention is still alive, get their letter, get both intended
Yeah.
candidates out to this group ASAP
And then
for an
have,
electronic vote.
or then can have a nominating committee. That's the thing. And then
Put it forward to this group.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
and then we'll have one of the two or voted on and on this.
okay. Mark, thanks for doing that. I'll put that on there. Old business, bylaws. We've got a bylaws committee looking at bylaws. That is gonna go ahead
Yeah,
and
I
discuss.
think this is brief, because you're not gonna take action. So it's just a good practice to sort of periodically reviewing your bylaws. Make sure that. So we had a committee, it started with a review of Massachusetts nonprofit bylaws, to look at sort of current standards and sort of common practice. And then I also looked at some from some organizations that I know just have good lawyers, so you get the benefit of somebody else. So I'm going to distribute some really basic bylaws. They just do the basic membership form. So they're very standard, modernized approach. I think probably nothing controversial. We had the benefit of the committee review and then, long experience. Decade feedback, questions, made a few, adjustments here and there. So the thought is if we just take a peek and say in the next maybe 2 weeks, if you have feedback questions or whatever, get that, I don't know if you want to get that. The committee can discuss if there's anything, and then they'd be ready to go.
What's the quorum?
Yeah, there's, when you were just talking about the size, there's no change in the director numbers. Case. And then these are also simple because I just like really understandable to anyone at first read. Form is a majority. Yeah.
Is that
So,
where we are now? Nine,
Nine is.
nine, so that would- would that be reducing it? Would be eight? Or 15 or?
We're 17.
Or 13, so nine, so
We'll change it, there's now.
Well, we're 16 actual, but right,
Yeah.
we're allowed.
so, it's also modernized. Firm, honestly, you know, action. There's a few little. The next step will be the.
Like to have this.
If we all, if everybody agrees, doesn't have any questions, we'll.
You're good, you'd be good to go. I would. Leave it at Mark. You'll see at the very end. It does change. Method to modify your bylaw forward basis. Standard practice. So that would simplify it going forward and not have a long bylaws.
So then going into the annual meeting, we would,
Yes,
there would be no.
oh, no, I would just say, I mean, these are actually the standard and straightforward. I think we could.
We would post them for the membership on your meeting website and also on announcement for the meeting. Say something about the bylaws that will be up for renewal or, and then with your link.
Vote them in at the annual meeting.
Yeah, vote them.
So these, I did not redline off the current, these are substantially reduced from the current bylaws. The current bylaws are really. They act, and the others who go through, if anyone here. They made me do.
Yeah.
That's the only known copy.
Right. Yeah, they're really.
That's still our seal.
That was done in 2006, I think. I know Arthur Martin was on it. He was leading that. Mary Jane Savage at the time was on that. I can't remember who else was on that. A while back.
I don't think there would have any changes stayed then. I mean, I think we have our article.
Even
Yeah, they
further.
probably just tweaked
Probably.
It just felt very old, like when I read them. You can't just read them and understand it. You have to read it, and then you have to go back and read the passages, and then go back. I really couldn't cope with it. And I think that bylaw should be very straightforward, so everybody gets it, and they're also sort of like a minimum. So say, for instance, you want to create, 2 or 3 committees or have certain financial controls. I think even the fiscal year would be better than that. You just don't need that. You have policies and procedures, so if there's something that you want to make sure there's discussed, it's memorialized.
Let's do it like a few weeks. Anybody has some change, we'll take it back to the bylaws committee stuff. Any old business, I want to read a letter, from the Osterville Historical Society. Dear members of the OBA board, on behalf of the board of the Osterville Historical Museum, we'd like to thank you for your generous grant of $8,500 from the Robert Smith Fund. We are humbled by your continued support of our efforts to preserve the history of Osterville, a place that we all know and love. Our Riano Post Office is just another example of the Osterville community banding together to rescue historically significant treasures that mean so much to the fabric of our story. Our mission is to preserve the stories of Osterville for all those who love her, past, present, and future. We look forward to this next chapter as we plan to dedicate the newly restored post office on June 4th. We look forward to welcoming you all to the celebration. Sincerely, Richard Haskell, Board of June 24th.
We missed it.
Perfect. Thank you, David. Okay, any other old business? Seeing none, new business, I just wanted to say, repeat again, the annual meeting is Wednesday, August 16th, 2023. Thank you. And yes, you've asked, the economy and that group to come and give us an update. I think that's one of the major issues that are going through the town now. And like I said, with her and Hector Gunther and a number of other people, they can give a very complete picture of where we stand. Anything else?
You got reelected.
You got reelected? Yeah.
I appreciate it.
So we. Motion to adjourn?
No, no,
No July.